Hey guys, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Suitcase podcast. We just had the opportunity to unpack life with Jaclyn Robinson from the Beignet company. This is an awesome conversation, and I'm really excited to get started, so check it out. Hey, Jaclyn, welcome to Suitcase Podcast, where we unpack life. Thank you for being on the podcast today. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, awesome. My name's Jaclyn Robinson, and I'm the owner and founder of Beignet company.
Okay.
And I think around about now, everybody's probably pretty familiar with what Beignet is. We just celebrated our 3-year anniversary this month.
That's huge.
Well, actually, February, last month. Today is March 1st. So.
Y'all launched around Mardi Gras 3 years ago?
Actually, yeah, February 6th, 2020. Was our grand opening day, and it was actually the very first day of Mardi Gras season.
No, that was very smart. I think the time in there.
I had no idea.
Oh, really?
I had never been to
whenever
a Mardi Gras.
I saw it, I was like, this is the smartest thing I've ever seen.
Well, I can't take any credit because you know what? I'd never even been to a Mardi Gras.
Wow.
I had no idea. I had no point of reference for what I was going to expect. I'll never forget a few days before I opened the doors, Mayor Stimpson came in. And just to check out the place, introduce himself, try my beignets and syrup. And he's a cinnamon fan, by the way. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and said, so about how many people do you think you're going to employ here? And in all seriousness, I said, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 or so. I said, I'll probably run my register. Like in my mind, I really thought I was opening like just a ma and pa kind of like cute little quaint beignet shop downtown. Yeah. Which it very much is quaint and, but I had never done anything like this. Wow. And I had no point of reference, and especially having never been to a Mardi Gras, it was just the timing. It worked out for me to open February 2020, which so happened to coincide with Mardi Gras. Yeah. And so when those doors opened and the lines started, and the lines didn't stop for 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Not
Y'all
until
was letting
we
the
shut
good
down.
times roll.
Yeah, exactly. We sure were. And Lord, I was rolling. I was barely able to keep my head up after not a lot of sleep went on during those first 7 weeks.
Oh, I can imagine.
And then, of course, we all know how the rest of the story goes. 2020, after 7 weeks of being open, the whole world shut down. Yeah. So
that's not any good.
No.
Let's go back. Let's go back further. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? How did you get here?
Oh, dude, we're about to unpack
Let's go.
it. You ready?
Yeah, ready to unpack
this thing. Extra recording cards for that, because just the story in itself of how I came to be a Mobilian is pretty significant. So, I grew up in North Alabama. Okay. I'm from the Huntsville area, a little town called Meridianville. All right. I'm a Sparkman High School grad.
All right, go Spartans.
Yeah. So, I lived there my whole life until I went off to college. I went to college at Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee. Yeah. Got myself a bachelor's degree in communications with an emphasis in PR and marketing. Okay. Minored in Bible. I honestly always thought I was going to be in ministry, right? In some shape or form. I don't know why. I really just always had a heart.
Does your family? Do you have like background in family and ministry?
Yeah, yeah. Both of my uncles are pastors,
right? Okay.
So one's I think now an overseer in the assemblies or something. But okay. But yeah. Cool. So I just always been raised in church and just always had a heart for the Lord and to do His work, right? And so I thought that was the direction I was going to go. But I actually got my degree in communications because I wanted to work in public relations in the music industry, specifically the Christian music industry. Okay. So the last summer before I graduated from college, I was actually a December grad, 2001. But that last summer, I did an internship at Sony Music up in Nashville for Monument and Epic and Columbia Records. And my plan had been to graduate that December and then go back to Nashville because I had a lot of promising, opportunities up there for what I wanted to do. But then when I graduated, I was home for about 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks into January. It was January 8th. And my brother, who was living in the Cayman Islands at the time, It was his birthday, and he got into a really bad accident on his way home from his birthday party. And long story short, 2 days later, he was flown on like a medical Learjet from the Cayman Islands to Huntsville. And they said he flatlined on the plane twice, and they brought him back. But he ended up having to have his right leg amputated above the knee. And, it was just me and my brother and my parents. So both of my parents had full-time jobs. So I actually ended up staying home and pushing pause on the Nashville thing to help take care of him. Because, obviously, you go from one limb to, from one leg to, from 2 legs to one, there's a lot you can't do anymore. And just a lot of trauma there because, he was in the hospital for a long time with that. And, so I ended up staying in Huntsville and not moving to Nashville to help out there. And, a lesson, if I could go back now and tell myself back then, I think a lot of kids, when they graduate from college, do the same thing that I did. I felt the pressure. Okay, now what's next? I've got my degree. My parents just put me through college. I need to get a job. And as opposed to just waiting a little longer till the timing was right to start off with what I wanted to do, I took the first quote good opportunity that came to me, and I ended up taking a job as a marketing coordinator for a hospital up there, and it was good. It was a good job. Very thankful for the job. It just wasn't. It didn't set me on the course that I wanted to originally go. So I did that for a couple of years, and then a group of orthopedic surgeons up there, sports med orthopedic, they asked me to come and be their director of marketing. So I accepted that position. And again, here you go, you snowball. And then what happens? You buy a house and you buy a car, and then you've got, all this stuff, And then you're like, wait, you look up and you go, what is this? This is, who am I? I'm in medical marketing, and,
This is not where I was intended to be.
Yeah, and I might be doing a good job at it. And, but is it really what I want? And then I went through some life changes. I actually was with the same guy from 14 years old until I graduated from college.
Oh, wow.
It was one of those off again, on again, like constant, and we actually ended up getting married a year after I graduated college, and it lasted about 6 months. So we were together for 8 years.
Wow.
And then married 6 months, and it was over.
Wow.
Yeah, so I went through a lot of life changes in that year. It was 2004 at this point. And around October 10th, I think it was October 10th, I got rebaptized and rededicated my life to the Lord. I'd never walked away from the Lord. But I had that moment where I was like, this is like a mark in time.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
This is a very significant moment. And I did that, and then it was November 2004, out of the blue, the man who had been the CFO of the hospital in Huntsville that I worked for, he had moved to Mobile and become the CEO of a healthcare staffing company down here. And out of the blue, he called me and he said, hey, would you be willing to move to Mobile and be my VP of marketing and business development? And I said, wow, thank you for thinking of me, but no thanks.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah.
I've just gone through a lot of life changes.
That's right.
I didn't want it to feel like I was running away. I mean, I'd been in Huntsville my whole life, all family there, friends there. I'd gone through this divorce from the guy that was part of my identity.
Yeah.
Because he was all I'd known since I was 14.
That's right. No, that makes total sense.
Yeah, and so I said no, and I just bought a house. Like I was 2 months in on my house, my new house, and it made no sense.
Right.
But at that same time, I had been seeking the Lord like never before in my life, like just really going after him. And I would leave work and I would go find like dead end streets and park my car, and I would just get out and pound the pavement and just cry out to God, like, take my life, use it. I know you've created me for more than this. Just really going after God, like, this, I know this isn't it.
Right. And I was created for more.
I was created for more, like just new in my knower. And so I was just really seeking God like never before. And for the first time in my life, I was truly seeking first the kingdom before everything else. Yeah. And I did get to that place where I didn't want anything else. I was so satisfied in my singleness. I was so satisfied. And in all honesty, it was my first time to ever just be me and Jesus.
Just to try to figure out who you are and who your identity was in him.
Yeah. And to enter in a relationship when you're 14 years old and be with that person. Yeah. So for the first time in my life, especially my adult life, it was just me and Jesus. And so this offer comes through, and I say no. And I remember almost getting a little smug with God, like, aren't you proud of me? I made a mature decision.
Yeah.
I made a wise choice.
That's right.
I'm not just, and it was about 4 weeks later on New Year's Day, 2005, I was standing in a worship service in a church in Huntsville. The man, I don't know if you remember the Brownsville revival from Pensacola?
We were just literally talking about that before you got here.
Yeah, you remember Lyndall Cooley?
We was talking about that too.
Okay, so Lyndall Cooley was leading worship at a church in Huntsville on January 1st, 2005.
Right.
And I'm standing there in that worship service, hands raised, just worshiping the Lord. And the only way I know how to describe it, it was like a lightning bolt download from heaven that in a millisecond, I knew I'm supposed to be in Mobile and it's where my purpose is.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't like I heard those words.
It was just like you just knew. Yeah, just instantly.
It was, I can't even describe it. It'd be like if somebody plugged something like a USB or like a little flash drive into you and instantly they put the info in you. It was just so hard to explain. That's the only way I've ever really been able to explain it. And I literally physically shook, like it jolted me.
That's so crazy.
And I kind of was like, okay, what was that? Went out to my car, and I had a missed call on my cell phone from one of my former college roommates who lives in Mobile, is married to a pastor here. And she said, I've been praying for you, and I really feel like I'm supposed to say, I think you're supposed to be in Mobile. And so that was like, I was like, okay, Lord, what's going on?
Right.
So then my other college roommate, all three of us, we lived together at Lee. She was also in Mobile about to have a baby. And so I called this guy back and I said, listen, I know I told you no, but if you're still trying to fill the position, I would be willing to come down, talk to you, interview, all of that. I'm coming down to visit my friend with her baby anyway. And he said, yeah, I'm still looking. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't excited about it.
Right.
Not at all. I had noted, I said, okay, Lord, not only do I need X, Y, and Z in order for this to happen, like I need a joy and a peace about making a move like this, because this makes no sense to me. And one of my biggest things was, Lord, how am I going to float a place to live in Mobile? And also have I've got a brand new house node up in Huntsville. I just bought that. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. And as soon as I pulled in and met my friend, she said, oh, hey, I meant to tell you, our church has got a parsonage behind it that nobody's living in at all. You can stay there for free as long as you want to, until you get your house situation in Huntsville figured out. And I was like, okay, God, I hear you. And so it continued, those types of little God winks along the way that let me know I'm supposed to move to Mobile. Like, there's no denying this at any point. Right. I've got to go. If I don't, at this point, I'm just in disobedience. Right. At this point, I'm just saying, no, God, I'm not going to do it your way. Right. So I did. I took the leap, and I came, and I was miserable. And I was like, God, what? Like, it was that, why have you forsaken me? Yeah. Like, God, all I've done is just cry out to you. And like, God,
I'm trying to be obedient to you, and here I am, stuck in this hole.
Absolutely. And like, it's this, and I think sometimes as believers, we get it in our head that, when we get into get on that path of purpose for what the Lord has for us, that it's somehow we're entering some kind of promised land of milk and honey and everything's just going to be great and grand and glorious. That's right. It's really the opposite. Right. I mean, it's not an easy path. Right. It's the narrow path. And so we get to, I get to Mobile and I'm not happy. And the next thing you know, my job in Huntsville is offering my job back with more money. I'm getting a ministry opportunity up in like the Hamilton area with the ramp. Right. She tried to hire me 3 times. I don't know if you know who Karen Wheaton is. Yeah. She tried to hire me 3 times to come and do PR in marketing for the ramp. Right. And I wanted that one bad. Because for me, I'm thinking,
like, this is the God thing.
This is it.
Because church is the number one thing that God wants us to do.
Thank you.
It's the pinnacle. The pulpit is the pinnacle of Christianity.
That's what we all
have been taught our entire life.
Taught. And I really think I was hearing for several years, it felt like every message I heard was the Lord is calling his ministers into the marketplace. And I see it now. I see it happening. I'm looking at you, owner of your company, me, owner of my company. We're out here in the marketplace, but we're in ministry at the same time. And it's like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. But back then, it was like, oh, okay, this is a church job, so this is it.
God will be happy with me.
Yeah, and if God's going to call me to something, that's what he's going to call me to, a church job. So, but there were all these opportunities. There was even an opportunity up in Nashville And every time I thought about leaving Mobile, it was like my gut would just turn. I would literally get physically nauseated. And the Lord was like, you're not going anywhere. This is where I've put you. And then it was May 2005 that I was on a prayer walk. I used to go out and like just walk around streets and neighborhoods and just talk to the Lord. And I remember him telling me to sit down, and I did. And I heard the Lord speak to me about a person, a man that I had met. And I actually hadn't even really met him yet. And he had lost his wife, and he had 4 children. And I heard the Lord tell me that I was going to be in their future. And I thought he meant I was going to babysit and help, like, you know, make laundry, run errands, and all of this. I mean, here I was, a 24-year-old, almost 25-year-old single woman, no kids, and I heard the Lord speak to me about this person. Right. And a week later, this person approached me, and all he said to me was, "Have you heard from the Lord on this?" Wow. I know this all sounds really crazy. No,
it doesn't, because I'm on board. Go ahead. I'm good.
So, that's it. We talked, and it was like instantly we both knew that this was some sort of arranged marriage by Holy Spirit. Yeah. Like, we were like, what's going on? And now here we are. We celebrate our 18-year anniversary this year.
That's amazing.
And I got married. I adopted my 4 children, and they were all under the age of 7. His first wife passed away when she was 30, 7 weeks after Connor was born, my oldest son. Wow. And then so I raised the 4, but we had 1 together by birth. Right. And that's Cole. He's my 16-year-old. Okay. Connor's now 18. They're senior and sophomore in high school, but I've had them since they were babies.
That is so crazy.
Yeah. And so ultimately, I believe I know that's why the Lord called me to Mobile. That was my purpose. First and foremost was to be a wife and a mother. And somewhere along this path, he's called me to do something else a little crazy.
Right. Isn't it amazing, though, like how when God works, like this leads to this and that leads to that. And it almost looked like taking the good job because it was the good thing to do, because it was the thing you were supposed to do, but it actually led you to where you were going, and how all the steps are ordered, even though it seems like sometimes you're living in chaos, like from time to time and turmoil, like one step just leads you to another. And sometimes when I feel like when he sees you faithful in this step, he realizes you're prepared for the next step. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So that's so crazy. So you moved to Mobile. Do you take the position in Mobile?
I did take the position. Yeah. And not long after Bill and I were married, I began, I knew that I needed to be home with the children.
Yeah, for sure.
But I also knew that the Lord had given me all of these talents and abilities. I've always been a really driven person. Right. And I had taken photography in college, and I'd shot a couple of weddings when I was in Huntsville before I moved. And something just happened here, and people started finding out that I did photography, and it took off. Right. It really exploded. It exploded so much that within the first 3 or 4 years of our marriage, Bill, my husband, quit his full-time job, and we started shooting weddings together. We were full-time photographers together for 5 years. We traveled all over the country. Wow. Shot weddings in Wyoming and California, and I mean, we've been everywhere.
That's amazing.
And so we did that together for 5 years. Right. And I mean,
so Mobay Beignet Company obviously is not your first business that you've been in. No. Did you realize growing up that you had it inside of you to be a business owner, an entrepreneur? Was there something inside of you that was like, this is what I'm supposed to do? Or has it really been more listening to the voice of God, and one thing has led to the next?
It's been that. I've always been, in some ways good and in some ways bad, I've always been an overachiever. Okay. And I've always been a perfectionist. Right. And I've always been that one to take the bull by the horns. Right. So it makes sense to me that the Lord would have an entrepreneurial path for me. Okay. But I never thought of that path for myself.
You weren't like growing up like, man, I can't wait until I do this and setting up all the lemonade stands in the neighborhood and all this stuff. That's crazy. That is very like it's very similar. Like our stories are very similar. Like, and one thing that I realized kind of about both of our stories is a lot of times you can't see what God is doing in your life currently until you look back. And when you look back and you see the picture of what God's created, because of like, just the whole time you're telling your story, like I'm going like each step along the way with you. And I'm like putting myself in that position. I'm like, I don't see God in this. And I don't, you know what I'm saying? I can't necessarily like, what the heck are you doing to me? Do you dislike me? There's been times in my life when I'm like, did I do something wrong? Like, was there something that I did wrong that led me here? You know what I mean? What did I do to deserve this?
The whole God, why have you forsaken me?
Yeah.
Like, I remember feeling that way when I got to Mobile, because I was like, this is not what, am I not good enough for you? Am I not good enough to be used by you? Do you not, really? And that was it. And one such an important truth from the word that I've learned through all of this is his ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. So if it makes sense to us, it's probably not God.
That's right.
If it just makes perfect sense.
That's right. And it's easy, and it's just like, now one thing that I wish we were recording before all this got started. But one thing that we were talking about beforehand is like, there's a lot of times when when it kicks open the door and the thing starts to start rolling, stand out of the way because like stuff's about to happen.
Absolutely.
So I have not shared my story a lot. A lot of people like, maybe they know me as the garbage guy. I don't know exactly what they know me as. I've been trying to be the guy that's kind of made trash cool. There's been a lot of stuff in my story, but I have a 9th grade education. I've never been to college a day in my life. I struggle with reading. Like there's stuff that has made me vulnerable, and that kind of has tried to like work as a disadvantage to me. But there's times where like, it's almost these times where it's like out of body experiences, like where you'll stand like back and look. I've had the opportunity to sit in rooms that I never, based off my own merit, should have never been invited to. You know what I'm saying?
Example of his strength being made perfect in your weakness.
That's it.
Like almost the weaker we are, the less qualified we are, the more he can get the glory.
I went through this thug life part of my life whenever I was like in high school. On the side of my foot, like I had it printed, and it was like one of the tattoos that I was going to get was like last of a dying breed, and the other one was stay hungry and stay humble. And it like that has been my motto for life, is like stay hungry. Like it's almost like be satisfied and thankful for what you have, but like continue to go and grab and get. But like it's just a humility. Like it's the one thing in my life, you know what I mean, that it's like I have to have God. I can't do it by myself. And so I like your story is extremely important to me. I thought it was one that needed to be told, and that's the reason why we reached out to you. Talk to me a little bit about Mobays. How did I get started? Okay.
Well, so here I am, mother of 5 now at this point. It's 2016, I believe. And so at this point, I've been married for almost 11 years, and I'm just in my kitchen, making my cinnamon syrup for my family. And I think at that day I was going to be putting it on pancakes or something,
Right.
And I had this thought. I was standing over the stove and making the syrup, and I had this thought, I bet this would be good on my beignets. And out of nowhere, just like the way I described the word back in 2005, and I'm there, and all of a sudden I just hear Mobay Beignet. I wasn't trying to think of a name for a company. I wasn't trying to think of doing anything other than I just had the thought this syrup is going to be good on my beignets.
Right.
And I hear Mobay Beignet, and I holler to my husband. I'm like, hey, babe. He's sitting in there in the living room with the kids. I said, Mobay Beignet. And he said, what's that? And I said, I don't know. And that was 2016. And then over the course of about the next 3 years, I'd be driving down the road. Out of nowhere, I would hear Mobay Beignet. I'd be in the shower, wash my hair, Mobay Beignet. And it was just this constant thing that wouldn't let me go. It's like the story of Mobay, is posted on the walls of the cafes. And the first line is, sometimes you have an idea and sometimes an idea has you. For me, it was that name had me. And so it was now spring 2019. And one of my daughters wanted to go out to California. I don't know if you're familiar with Bethel, Redding, you know, Bethel Music and all that. And she wanted to go to Bethel for music ministry school. And so I said, let's buy tickets, let's get on a plane and go. And let's go check it out. Yeah. And so we took off. And while we were there was a couple who are on staff at Bethel School. And they're from Australia, so they talked really cool. Yeah. And I was like, just say something else. I just
talk to me.
Do I sound like a country bumpkin to you? What is it? You know, because you sound really cool.
Say not.
Say not. Those long eyes, man, they get me every time. But so we're there, and they prayed for me, and they asked me to pull out my phone and push the record button on my recorder, you know, your little app or whatever. And because they wanted me to record what they were going to say. And I did. And they proceeded to say, we see you entering into a new season. It has a jazzy feel to it. We see the Lord breaking a bottle of wine over a ship, like he's commissioning you. And he said, I also see a lot of numbers. And I hear the word, and he said, and I see the word math. And I hear the phrase, it doesn't add up. And he said, I feel like I'm supposed to strongly encourage you to keep moving forward if something doesn't add up. And so I was like, okay, thanks. You know, and I just started thinking, this is weird. Yeah. And so in my own human reasoning, I started thinking, what's not going to add up? Maybe it's going to cost a lot to send Kate to school, and maybe the numbers aren't going to add up, and we're not going to know how we're going to pay for it, but we need to move forward anyway and send her if she wants to go. And that's just our move forward. Like maybe nowhere in my mind is there a business coming down the pipe. Correct. Nowhere in my mind. I see that. So that was April 2019. May 2019, I was walking out to my mailbox, and walking back in, I heard the word now. That's all I heard. Now. Just the way I'd heard Mobay. I recognized it. And in that instant, those two things connected for me. I knew the Lord was saying, now start Mobay, like do Mobay. But I was like, what does that mean? Yeah. Yeah. You know, and so I went to the Lord in prayer over it. I was like, I know I've heard you say these things. What does this mean? What does this look like? And I felt like he led me to package up my beignet mix, jar up my syrup, and sell it as a fundraiser to send my daughter to school. I thought, oh, okay. God. So my marketing and PR brain and all my photography stuff kind of kicked in. Right. And I've always jokingly said that my overachiever ways, that if I was the mom at school that got asked to do a bake sale, I'd be like, well, this bake sale needs a website and it needs a logo and it, you know, we need to brand this bake sale. It's not just
you grabbing life by the horns.
Yeah,
it's your personality.
It's just my personality. It's a blessing and it's a curse.
For sure.
I exhaust myself and a lot of people around me, I'm sure. Right. But so I did that, and I sat down and I designed my logo, picked out the font, and it, you know, it has meaning. Like when you look at it, the square represents the beignet. Okay. And then the little white squiggly lines here, which people can't see it right now, but the white squiggly lines represent not just powdered sugar, but like waves of water because it's Mobay. Okay. And so I spent a lot of time designing the logo and doing all that. And then I prayed and I was like, well, Lord, what do the labels look like? And I had this picture come in my mind of Jones Soda Company. You remember those? Yeah, yeah. You know, and all their labels are photos. And it hit me. I'm a photographer, and I had this database of just black and white photos from downtown Mobile, and they were mine. And so it made sense to tie that part of who I was into labels part of the company. Right. And so I did it, and I created a Facebook and an Instagram page for it, and you know, went online and said, "Hey, guys, I doing something on the side. Yes, I'm still doing photography, but I'm launching this Mobay beignet company. If anybody wants to buy my beignet mix or my syrups, place an order. It'll help send my daughter to school. Thanks." Right. That was it. 24 hours later, Brooke with Domke Market over here near Target on Schillinger, she reached out to me and she said, "Hey, I want these Mobay Beignet Company products on my shelf. I think they're going to be a hit." Wow. And I jokingly say all the time, I'm like, I need to take her to Vegas because she just knew. She saw it and she went, this is a winner. Yeah. And so it went on her shelves, and then it was a snowball. Within 3 months, we were, I think, on 10 different shelves. Really quickly it was happening. And then Priester's Pecans on 65 picked it up, which was a huge account to get. And I looked up, though, and it was September, I think it was September 2019, I looked up and I was running myself ragged.
Right.
It's one thing to have a product that you sell direct to a customer. It's another thing to sell wholesale.
Okay.
Because unless you've got tons of clients.
Right. You got to be mass producing.
Yes,
yeah.
Your profit margin is much smaller to sell
because
wholesale.
they have to turn around to sell it to somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was getting really frustrated, and it was this point, September 2019, and I'm standing in my kitchen. I'm really talking to the Lord about this. I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? I know you told me to, but I don't get it. I need some explaining, please, Lord.
Right.
And I stand there and I start trying to figure out my profit and loss, the time I'm spending on it, the cost of my products. And all over my kitchen counter, there's receipts and sheets of math and just numbers everywhere. And I literally blurted out, this does not add up.
And then all of a sudden you thought about it. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. Go grab my phone, go push the play button on that recording. And I went, well, I guess I got to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, what does that look like, Jesus?
Right.
What do you want me to do next?
Right.
And that's when he strongly impressed upon me that I was supposed to be in a brick and mortar in downtown Mobile.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And then plenty more parts to that story. I don't know if you're familiar with the story of 451 and the building and how that even came to be. I'll interject it right here because it's a great place too. But I went downtown and with my husband, and we walked and we stumbled upon 451 Dauphin Street, which looks like something out of the French Quarter. It's
Right.
a beautiful yellow, just French culture inspired building. And there was a for lease by owner sign in the window, and talked to the owner, and he was immediately enamored with the idea. And I said, well, I've never done anything like this before. I've got a lot of research to do and lots of Googling to take place to
Right.
figure out what am I doing.
Right.
I know I'm supposed to, but I don't know how.
Right.
And I figured out the first step I needed to take was to go to the planning department downtown. And so I did. Parked my car right there outside of what's known as Mardi Gras Park.
Right.
Walked into the city building, went upstairs, talked to the folks in the planning department about, hey, 451 Dolphin, I'd like to turn it into a beignet cafe. How? What do I do?
How do we do
What are
this?
you going to make me do? Like, what,
Right.
somebody help. And I'm sure all of them thought I was just some crazy lady, and I kind of was. But I left that meeting feeling really defeated. And I went and the summary of it is it was going to cost a lot more money and take a lot more time than I ever thought it was going to take
Right.
to make this thing happen. And so I went and sat in my car and I said, Lord, is 451 Dolphin where you want your company to be? And when I tell you, every time I talk to the Lord about Mobay, it was always your company.
Right.
Like, I'm only doing this because I feel like you might strike me with lightning if I don't do it.
Right.
Like that's how.
That's right. Yeah.
Like, I'm
That's how
obeyed.
serious it was.
That's how it
Yeah.
was. I was doing it out of obedience, not like I desire to open up this and this is
Right.
my dream. He was telling me to do it, so I did it.
Right.
And I said, so is 451 Dolphin where you want your company to be? And I backed out of my parking space and pulled up to the light at Government Street. And in front of me was a car. And on the back left bottom corner of their back window was a sticker. And all the sticker was 451. And I sat there for a minute and, got my jaw up off the floor, and thankfully had, enough wherewithal to know, grab my phone, take a picture of that. And I went, I've never had a question answered by God so quickly. What are the chances? I mean, let's really be
Right.
real.
Right.
Of all the cars in the city and all the different ways I could have turned my car, and 10 seconds later, there's another car that's between me and that car.
Yeah.
That exact sequence of numbers, 451, would be sitting on the car in front of me right after I prayed.
That's so
It's
amazing.
just, it's wild.
It's amazing how God works when you listen in it.
Right. I mean, just listen, keep your eyes open, your ears open. And so I proceeded, and then we signed the lease that October. Another really cool part of the story is I told the owner of the building, I said, listen, I really think I'm supposed to be in your building. I think Mobay is supposed to be in your building, but I don't know how I'm going to make it happen. I said, this is going to cost way more money. And he said, listen, I don't know much, but I know that there's a God. And I know that this business is going to be successful, and I want it in my building. So you tell me what I have to do so that you will put Mobay in my building. And I said, well, your building's going to have a commercial hood. Like, one, it's being changed from a boutique to a restaurant, which means there's a change of occupancy. It's got to be brought up to code. There's a lot that's got to go on here, but it has to have a commercial vent hood because I'm frying.
Right.
And he said, okay, well, how much would a hood be? And I said, well, I'll get you a quote. And I got him one, and it was $30,000. And he wrote a check.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me God wasn't all in this story.
Oh, for sure,
just,
yeah.
You know, I was like, okay, Lord, I won't doubt you anymore. This surely is your business. Just what do you want me to do next?
Yeah, what now?
Yeah, so we signed the lease that October, and I wanted to get open that December. Didn't happen. It got pushed back to February. It was the first week of February, and a lady named Lynn Oldshoe, she does this page on Facebook called Our Southern Souls, where she talks about different people in the Mobile community and tells their story.
Right.
And she asked if she could interview me about Mobay. And I said, sure, come on down to the cafe, let's talk. And so I talked to her like I'm talking to you now, and I told her the story.
Right.
And she went on her Facebook page, and she told the complete story, including the part about the 451 sticker. And a local Mobile lady got on the post, and she said, I just wanted to tell you that 451 sticker that you saw, that was Fallen Officer Stephen Green's officer number. He was Officer 451, and he was killed in the line of duty 7 years ago this week, the week of your grand opening. Yes. And it held such significance for me because as a photographer, I had actually photographed the city's last 2 fallen officers' funerals.
I had actually seen that. I think that's how we connected because so we done a project through A1 McDuffie, the Back the Blue project. So I reached out to you to make sure it was okay to use your photography.
That's right. That was it.
For the pictures to raise money for the family of the fallen.
That was it.
That's how we connected.
So either Officer Justin Billa or Officer Sean Tudor. It was one of those. But so the fact that the Lord had used a fallen officer's number, and it coincided with the number of the building he would put me in, it was just like some things were coming full circle, and he was like weaving together parts of my story.
Right.
And it was just amazing. It was an amazing moment to learn that. And so our first Fat Tuesday, which is funny, I didn't even know what Fat Tuesday was before I opened Mobile. I had not even heard of it. I remember when I moved to Mobile, this is just a little side note, when I moved to Mobile and I took that healthcare staffing job, I was sitting in my office one random Tuesday in February making phone calls, and nobody's answering their phone, all this. And I was like, what in the world? Does nobody
Where's all
work?
These people?
Does nobody work? And some lady in my office said, it's Fat Tuesday. And I said, what is a Fat Tuesday? I don't even know what is this.
You don't want to know, bro.
I was like, what? So yeah, fast forward all those years later, and then, February 25th, 2020, it's our first official Fat Tuesday open, and it's also Officer Stephen Green's, what would have been Officer Stephen Green's 45th birthday. And so I spoke with his widow, and I told her the story, and I asked permission to share the story on my Facebook page and in some way just give honor to him. Not only was it the anniversary month of his passing, but it was now his birthday, and just how uniquely he tied into the story of our location. And of course, she was all about it and said, yes, please go ahead. And so I shared the story and on social, and it went viral. And then Mayor Stimpson shared it, and he declared February 25th Beignet Day in the city of Mobile. He gave me a cool proclamation to hang up on the wall. And it was just, I remember looking up at, by the end of February, I'm looking up going, oh my gosh, like what has just happened?
Yeah.
So much for just 5 employees too. Let me get you started on that part.
How many does it take to run Mobay?
Oh my gosh.
Well, at one location? Well,
just one location, I really need between 20 to 25 is ideal.
Right.
We often have to, struggle through with that 15, 20 mark.
But it blew the 5 to 6 to 8 out of the water.
Yeah. At this point now, with all of my locations, I've got right at 100 employees now.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it was wild. And then, we got in halfway into March, and all of a sudden some of my employees started coming through the door going, Miss Jaclyn, I gotta go home. My dorm is closing. I was like, your dorm is closed? And they're like, yeah, they're closing school early this year. Like, there's some kind of virus out there, and everybody's got to go home. They're closing the schools. And I hadn't been watching the news. I'd been eating, sleeping, and breathing beignets for 7 weeks. Like, literally, I would get up, I would be downtown by 6:30 in the morning.
Right.
I would be there until we closed, and I'd get home, shower, have maybe a few hours of sleep,
and go right back.
And there was the line wasn't stopping.
Right.
For Mobay. It was just crazy. I remember I would stand in line, and as I would check people out, I'd be like, do you need a job? Hey, you know anybody who needs a job? Hey, can you, and if somebody was like, yeah, I was like, hey, go grab you a shirt.
Ahead,
when can you start?
Right now.
Do I train? No, you'll learn. We'll teach you.
Yeah, we do that here, actually.
Right, yeah. It was nuts. And so clearly by mid-March, I realized what had to happen. And so we closed. But thankfully, that first 7 weeks had been so overwhelmingly successful that we were able to push pause and reflect and get a little rejuvenated and, rest and all of that. And also just evaluate, okay,
this is going to be more successful than what we thought it was going to be originally.
Yes. And how do we keep it from exploding?
Yeah.
Because we had one fryer, one bowl,
right, and
one spoon.
Right.
People were waiting up to 2.5 hours
for a Mobay
for their beignets. And they didn't care. They were happy to do it. And I was like, oh.
You're like, we got to speed this thing up.
I was like, we got to get another fryer. And we're working with a very little space. That building is 150 years old. Like it's a landmark space. And it's like, there's just not a lot of room. But we did add another fryer and more bowls and more spoons. And we did what we could to speed the process up. But it is still very much this is a made from scratch, made by hand, come in, slow down, take your time. We're not fast food.
Right.
But we knew we had to figure some things out. And so thankfully that gave us the time to do that.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So through all of this, God has been extremely faithful from the beginning to where you currently are.
Always.
I know there's some other stuff that you've got going that we can talk about in a minute, but like, what drives you? Like, what wakes you up in the morning?
Wow. I mean, obviously my family, my boys are still at home. I mentioned earlier, sophomore and senior. And several years ago, I did this. I felt like the Lord was leading me to do a prayer board. Have you ever, people make these vision boards?
Yeah.
And they'll like cut out pictures and of whatever, their dream homes or dream cars or whatever. But I felt like the Lord called me to do a prayer board.
Okay.
And it was kind of like our discussion or me learning, about my life from His perspective.
Oh, that's cool.
And as He would speak to me on something, I would put it on the prayer board, whether it was an idea He gave me or a verse He gave me or, and so it's a really cool thing to look at. Like it's completely full. I've actually been feeling like Him leading me to do another one. But in that process, He told me that my life was about legacy and it was about heritage.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that's what drives me every day. Is that I know I'm creating legacy and heritage for my children and my children's children. And that's what it's ultimately about, and leaving an inheritance for my children's children.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's what drives me.
That's awesome. I've asked that question to other people and I got a little different answer. But so one of the things that I say all the time, and I got it from a book, is does it make money? It's not a bad question. It's just a really bad first question.
Yeah.
Is does it serve people?
Yeah.
So one thing that I see that like marketplace ministry. So just back a little bit in my life, I think anybody that was ever in youth group was called to ministry because they went to the altar and everybody was like, you're going to do this. And I see you doing that. And I spent a lot of my life trying to please God by reaching the pinnacle of the pulpit of Christianity. And it's like, God wants me to be a pastor and God wants me to do this and God wants me to do that. And it was like, I hear what you're saying, but I hear what He's saying. And the two didn't line up. And I had to get to the point where I could hear your voice, but I had to get to the point where I trusted His voice greater than the outside voices in my life. Yes. And I wanted to make sure that the things that He was calling me to do, that I was faithful in them. I was faithful and that they would be fruitful and that they would, things that are healthy grow. So going through the process in my life, I've served in youth ministry. I've served in the church. I've preached sermons. I've done all the stuff. And I think that I have the utmost respect for the people that's in ministry.
Absolutely.
That serve in the local church, but also the people that do it in marketplace. And so what happened was I got involved in church and I got like entangled with everything, all the stuff that's in it. And not by no means am I saying that church is bad. Church is good. Absolutely. Church is God's idea. But what happened to me is I realized my life looked more like a Pharisee and a Sadducee than what it did Jesus. And whenever I started focusing on his life and I started looking at what he done, I found him less in the temple and more in the marketplace. Yes. And I was like, God, let me just be like you. Yeah. Like if I'm going to have to follow what you're doing, like he said, I only can do the things that I see my father do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I didn't have a father figure growing up in my life. My dad walked out when I was 3 years old. So statistically, all the stuff in my life, I was like, I can either use this as a crutch to never accomplish anything, or I can get a little chip on my shoulder and I can be somebody, and I can be somebody for him and follow what he, what he has for me to do. So through all of those steps in my life, I've realized that he's been faithful, that if you listen to his voice, he will lead you in the right direction, that in the middle of chaos, you'll have peace because it's the place that he's planted you for the time being. We talked about a story of, us going to my family going to Tuscaloosa and coming back before reaching this point. And I realized if God leads you to do something, there's a point in your life that he brings you to where he is either going to help make you or he is going to break you. Like you are going to be in this place where you're either going to make the decision, and I have really bad ADD, so just follow me. Yeah, I'm with you. So growing up in life, at times, I took the ASFAB and I wanted to go into the military. And people's like, why do you want to go into the military? And I was like, well, I want to make a difference. Yeah. I want to make a difference in the world. I don't want to just be, Kenneth Havens here in Sims, Alabama. The garbage thing, if it comes, if it goes, as long as the Lord at the end of the day has found me faithful. Yeah. It's been worth every single ounce of sweat, blood, and tears that's went into everything. I had the opportunity to sit across the table from a guy that owns $100 million operation in the waste industry. And so we're talking about business questions and all this stuff. And he was like, so why do you grow? Why do you want to grow? And he was looking for an answer. The answer that I gave was different. And I sit there at first, I was like, okay, think of something businessy to say, some percentage based and this thing. And I told him, I said, there's a story in the Bible of a person that was given 1 talent and the other one was given 3 and the other one's given 5 and the other one's given 10. I said, the reason why I continue to grow is because I'm not sure how many talents he gave me, but whenever I stand in front of him, I want to make sure that I multiply what he gave, and I refuse to put it in the ground. And he was like, I was really looking for 28% profit margins, and I was like, bro, I don't know about any of that.
Sometimes people aren't ready for our kind of
answers. And it's I was like, bro, I just got to do what he's telling me to do. Whenever things here at A1 McDuffie, man, when things get sometimes the people here hate me. They love me and they know that I love them, but it's things start to get just chill. And it's no, he's called us to do more. Yeah. We've got to impact more people, because the more people that we service, the more reach that we have and the more impact that I have here. I've had more opportunity to pastor people sitting in my office, grown men that's bawling their eyes out because of situations that they're going on in their life. And regardless of how big we get, we started the Lucedale contract the day before we got started. Hey, let's have a word of prayer. Yeah. Hey, let's talk about it. Hey, I've dealt with all kinds of different walks of life, and it's not anything about me. Yeah. It's zero about me. If nobody ever knows who I am, I'm okay. But if I lead one person to get closer to him, it was worth everything. That's what it was about. It was everything. And if the places that he's led me in my life, it was if I go broke tomorrow, I'll still be okay. Absolutely. Because I know who he calls me. Yeah. And I've seen him provide before, so I know he'll provide again. Absolutely. You know what I mean? So
one of the coolest things, talking about just the one, if it just made a difference for one, right. I'll never forget, with Mobay, I get a lot of messages. I've had handwritten letters sent to me. I've had Facebook messages come through, emails, whatever. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorites ever is a man who messaged me, and he said, I want you to know that I came into your cafe today and I read your story on the wall, and I stood there and cried. And then I went home and I prayed for the first time in a really long time. Wow. And it was boom, done.
That's what it's worth. That's what it's about.
That's it. And that's the point of the story of Mobay, right. Is that God is speaking.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to speak to you.
Right.
He has a plan for you.
That's
and
right.
he wants to lead you.
Right.
His plan for you is good.
That's right.
It's not to harm you. It is to prosper you.
That's right.
And if he will speak to me, and you'll look around and you'll see what it became because I simply listened and obeyed.
And you had a
guess
yes.
what?
You put your best yes
That's
forward.
it.
That's it.
I didn't do anything to earn it. The only thing I did right was just obey.
Right.
And even in that, he gave me the grace to obey. He gave me the strength in my own weakness when I can't tell you how many times I wanted to quit before the project was before the doors to Mobay even opened.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I wanted to quit. I can't tell you how many times, even now, 3 years in, that the stress becomes so much that I'm like, highest bidder. Who wants does anybody want to buy a beignet company?
You want a garbage company? Come on on a good Tuesday.
There's stressful days. There really are, but for the one, man, it really is. And, even I would like to circle back, if it's an okay time, to when you were talking about, ministry and church and all of those things. And, like I was saying before we started recording, I grew up in the church. I went to a Christian college. I minored in Bible. Both of my uncles were pastors. I thought I was going to be in ministry. Like all of my life, I thought ministry revolved only around the church.
That's right.
And it was pretty wild. I had this opportunity. I think it was around 2016. We'd started going to a local church, and we'd only been there 4 months. And out of the blue, the campus pastor comes up and taps me on the shoulder. He said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you. What would you think about interviewing to be the campus pastor's assistant and our team director here at the church?" And for me, it was a no-go.
Yeah.
Because I was, full-time mom, full-time photographer, all of that. But I prayed, and it was like I had this moment. I was like, this is it. This has got to be it. Like, I'm supposed to be doing ministry. And
it's almost like you keep gravitating towards what you were told your entire life that you were supposed to be doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I took the job. And first of all, let me say, working for the church, I have worked for orthopedic surgeons, and working for the church was harder than any other job I've ever had. By the time I left, we had over 500 and something volunteers that I was leading, plus, handling the campus pastors, all the administrative side of the church. And it was a lot, but I'm so thankful for that time. Not only did it become a lot of learning lessons that took place in that I've been able to implement now, leading almost 100 employees, but it gave me the opportunity to go, okay, I have been there. I have been in church ministry. I have walked that path.
I opened that door and I've closed it. Thank you, Lord.
He opened it and he closed it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sitting here now wondering. I'm not searching for that anymore. And it's like he was able to show me, I've called you to ministry in the marketplace.
Yeah.
I let you taste this over here.
Right.
But that's not what I created you for. And I want you to stop thinking that that's it.
Right.
This is what I've called you to do.
It blows my mind. Like, and this is totally off subject. This is the ADD 3D talking. But it's like, it just blows my mind that, like, the good news to be able to get it spread. The most that you hear about marketplace ministry is tell your people in your marketplace to come visit our church. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of teaching on how to use marketplace ministry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it should not have been that big of a struggle in my life to be able to say, am I supposed to be working for the kingdom or do I work for money? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Anyways, it's like we got to do a little bit better. We got to do a little bit better there. Teaching people like how to be able to hear the Lord's voice, how to be able to follow it, how to minister in your marketplace, and how to use your marketplace as a ministry.
Absolutely.
I think that's really important.
Agree.
I think that's really important.
Yes, I do too.
You want to talk about some of the upcoming stuff that you have? Because I know that there's some others. So I know there's Mobay Beignet Company. Yeah. There's been other companies that's been birthed out of it. Do you want to talk about any of that?
Yeah. So basically, once, after we reopened from COVID in 2020, the following March, we opened Mobay Beignet Company in Auburn. That became our second location. And then that was March 21. And then fall 21, I created a sibling company to Mobay, if you will. It's Baytown Burger Company.
Okay.
In July of that year, my oldest son, who is my cheeseburger loving kid,
right,
said, "Hey, Mom, when are you going to open me a cheeseburger place?" And I said, okay, well, what would it look like? What would we name it? What would it? And they were like, what, really? We were on a little vacation in Florida, and we all just kind of started this powwow of like creating logos and what they would look like and menu items. And we're a huge baseball family, so it's a baseball themed, it's burgers, beignets, and baseball. And that opened in the fall of 21. And it's, located over here at Airport and Schillinger area in front of Academy. And you walk in, and it's just a celebration of the baseball community of Mobile. Like, we've got
I go there often.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
The little wall of fame. It's got all these T-ballers, these little ball players from like Park Ball, and they've autographed their photo, and we've put them on the wall. And all the tabletops have different team photos. And we just combined a lot of our family's loves into that location. Yeah. And so that one opened, and we got the Mobile food truck started, and that happened. And then the next thing you know, I was franchising, and Mobile Hattiesburg, Mobile Orange Beach at the Wharf, Mobile Tuscaloosa, those all opened. And then Mobile Saraland just opened last October. And now,
that's exciting.
Yeah, and now in about 4 or 5 weeks, Mobile Memphis opens.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's going to be our 3rd state. In 3 years, we will have
that's amazing.
Gotten into 3 states, which is just incredible. It'll be our 8th brick and mortar. And I think there's more growth on the horizon. We also, this is it's kind of a cool another little story. I'm going to make this one short, but my youngest son has been quite the golfer. He's a baseball player. But
I saw a video about this.
Yeah, he really loves golf. And one day he was saying, this was probably about 2 months ago, he said, "Oh, Baytown, Connor's restaurant," because Connor's his older brother, and he was the cheeseburger loving kid, as if like he didn't have his own restaurant. And I was just sitting there in my living room, and it was just like pow, like another like just this download, like Bay birdies, like birdies, chickens are birds, golf birdies, and I was like, wait, I went, oh my gosh, I said, get in here, Cole. And he was like, what? And I was like, no, get in here, I want to see your face. And I said, Bay birdies. He went, what?
That's gonna be mine?
I said, a golf themed chicken finger place, like chicken and beignets. Cool. I said, like chicken and waffles, like chicken and beignets. Like we can do a chicken restaurant that's, based around golf, and we play on it like, cool. Birdies on the Greens is our chicken salad, and the Birdie Club is our chicken sandwich, and we can have the Arnold Palmer and the drink,
cool.
And it's gonna be, and he was just like, he stood there and he stared at me and he went, where do you come up with this stuff? And I said, I don't know. I think it's just Jesus.
That's so funny. So is that going to be launching? It's coming?
Yeah. So the plan is for spring. Now, I will say we're kind of in a limbo with location. We thought that we had the location, and some things have fallen through with that. So what we might end up doing is actually a soft launch of the menu out of our West Mobile store, so people can come and try the menu before the actual brick and mortar for it opens.
Okay, that's smart.
That wasn't ideal, but it's an option. And I've actually even thought about converting the Mobile to a Bay Birdies on wheels.
Oh, that's cool.
And
that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's an option. So we're kind of playing around with those options right now, but we're excited about it. I think it's going to be another cool concept. And who knows, it might be the most successful, because we all know people in Mobile like chicken.
Oh, you ain't lying. Everybody loves some chicken.
Everybody does. And that's the one thing I don't do.
That's funny. That's awesome. Yeah. I've enjoyed so much you sharing your story. Is there anything that you want to add before we close this up?
Oh, man. Well, I could talk to you for another hour. There's plenty of.
That'd be fine. I don't know if the SD card will hold it, but we can roll.
No, there's so many cool stories. I've said a few times that I probably need to write a book one day and call it The Miracles of Mobile. There's so many cool stories to tell. So we maybe another podcast episode
for sure.
We can come on and talk about some more things.
That'll be cool. I want to stay connected with you moving forward in the future and stuff. But thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.